Come back here, useless girl. Zainabu, come back here. Come back here. Kande's voice cut through the evening air like the crack of a whip. Her words chased Zainabu down the narrow path between the compound and the forest, each syllable heavy with venom. But Zainabu did not stop. Her bare feet pounded against the red earth, her wrapper clinging to her legs as she ran. Behind her, she could still hear it, the sound of Kande's fury, raw and unrestrained. You lied! You said it was an accident! Tell them what you did! The words rang in Zainabu's ears even as she stumbled through the bushes, branches scraping her arms and legs. She didn't know what Kande meant. She didn't understand why her aunt's rage had flared so suddenly over a broken plate. But the look in Kande's eyes, wild, guilty, desperate, had terrified her more than the blows ever could. Zainabu ran until her lungs burned, until her legs trembled, until the sounds of the village faded into the hum of the forest. And then, finally, she stopped. The sacred river lay before her, its surface dark and still in the fading light. The air here was different, cooler, quieter, heavy with something ancient and watchful. Palm fronds whispered overhead. The smell of wet earth and moss rose from the banks. This was the place the villagers feared, the place they avoided after sunset. But for Zainabu, it was the only place that felt like home. She collapsed on the smooth stones at the water's edge, her body shaking with sobs she had been holding back for hours. Her hands clutched the old clay pot that her mother used to carry to the river every morning. It was all she had left of Yara. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mama, why did you leave me alone in this world?" Tears spilled down her cheeks and dropped into the water, disappearing into the current. Zainabu pressed the pot against her chest, rocking back and forth as grief poured out of her like a wound finally opened. "I miss you, Mama. I miss you so much." The river grew quiet. Too quiet. The usual sounds, frogs croaking, insects chirping, the soft rush of water over stones, all stopped at once. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then it began. A low rumble rose from deep within the water, slow and deep, like something ancient waking from a long sleep. The surface of the river began to stir, rippling outward in perfect circles. Zainabu lifted her head, her tears still wet on her face. She watched, frozen, as the water swirled in front of her, turning slowly, deliberately, as though drawn by an invisible hand. "Mama?" she whispered. The water did not answer, but it moved closer, lapping gently at the stones near her feet. And for the first time in years, Zainabu felt something she had almost forgotten. She was not alone. Zainabu had been only 7 years old when her mother drowned. She remembered the day in fragments, sharp, painful pieces that never quite fit together. The sky was clear that morning. Yara had been singing as she braided Zainabu's hair, her fingers quick and gentle, weaving the strands into neat rows. Kande had come to visit, bringing palm wine and laughter. The two sisters had decided to go to the river together to fetch water and wash clothes. "Stay home, my daughter," Yara said, kissing Zainabu's forehead. "I will return before the sun is high." But the sun had risen and fallen, and Yara never came back. It was Kande who stumbled into the village that evening, her wrapper soaked, her eyes wide with shock. She collapsed in front of the chief's compound, gasping for breath, clutching her chest as the villagers gathered around her. "Yara," she choked, "slipped. The stones were wet. I tried to save her, but the current, it took her so fast." The men searched for 3 days, diving into the river, dragging nets along the banks, but Yara's body was never found. The river had claimed her, and the river never gave back what it took. After that, the villagers began to whisper. They said the river was angry. They said it was cursed. Mothers forbade their children from playing near the water. Fishermen made offerings of kola nut and palm wine before casting their nets. And at night, when the moon was high, some claimed they heard singing, a woman's voice, soft and mournful, rising from the depths. But Zainabu did not fear the river. She went there every week, sometimes more, carrying her mother's clay pot and sitting by the water's edge. She talked to Yara as though she could hear every word. She told her about school, about her friends, about the small joys and sorrows of a child's life. And then her father married Kande. Sadiq had been a good man once, strong, hard-working, known throughout the village for his kindness and his steady hands. He had loved Nyara deeply, and her death had broken something inside him. For months, he wandered through the compound like a ghost, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to look his daughter in the eye without weeping. It was the elders who suggested the marriage. They said a child needed a mother. They said Kandi, as Nyara's sister, was the rightful choice. They said it would keep the family together, honor tradition, and give Zainabu the care she deserved. Sadiq had hesitated, but loneliness is a heavy thing, and grief makes men desperate. He agreed. The wedding was quiet, almost shameful. No drums, no dancing, no celebration. Just a brief ceremony under the Udala tree, witnessed by a handful of elders. Kande wore white, as custom demanded, but her smile was tight, her eyes unreadable. Zainabu had stood beside her father, small and silent, clutching the hem of his wrapper. She didn't understand why her mother's sister was now her mother. She didn't understand why her father looked so tired, so defeated. But she said nothing. Children in the village did not question the decisions of their elders. At first, Kande had been kind, or at least she had pretended to be. She cooked Zainabu's favorite meals, braided her hair, told her stories before bed. But the kindness was thin, brittle, like a mask that cracked a little more each day. It began with small things: a slap for speaking too loudly, a shove for moving too slowly, a scolding for eating too much. Then the chores began, endless, exhausting, meant to break rather than teach. Sweep the compound, fetch water, pound the yam, wash the clothes, cook the soup, feed the chickens, scrub the pots. And if Zainabu made a mistake, if she spilled water, burned the soup, or forgot to close the chicken coop, Kande's fury would descend like a storm. "Useless girl, just like your mother, careless and foolish." The beatings came next, a cane across the back, a slap across the face. Once, Kande had twisted Zainabu's arm so hard she couldn't lift it for a week. But in public, Kande was a saint. She smiled warmly at the market women. She brought gifts to the chief's wives. She spoke softly and kindly, her voice dripping with honey. The villagers praised her for her patience, her generosity, her willingness to raise her sister's child as her own. Only Zainabu knew the truth. Kindness does not leave scars. Now, sitting by the river, Zainabu touched the bruise on her shoulder where Kande had struck her earlier. The pain was sharp, but she had learned to endure it. Pain was constant. Pain was predictable. But tonight, something had been different. Tonight, Kande's rage had not been about a broken plate or a forgotten chore. Tonight, her fury was wild, desperate, almost guilty. "You lied. You said it was an accident." Zainabu replayed the words in her mind, trying to understand. What accident? What lie? The river continued to swirl before her, its surface catching the last light of the evening. The water moved slowly, gently, as though inviting her closer. Zainabu leaned forward, her reflection rippling in the dark water. She looked tired, older than her 16 years. Her eyes held a sadness that no child should carry. "Mama," she whispered again. "If you can hear me, please, I need you." The river rumbled once more, deeper this time, and Zainabu felt the air around her shift. The hairs on her arms stood up, the temperature dropped, and somewhere, far below the surface, something stirred. She didn't know it yet, but the river was listening, and soon it would speak.